Hi everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. It seems as if Bonnie Parker's name was always synonymous with Clyde Barrow's name. And of course it was. We know that Bonnie and Clyde met for the first time in January 1930. And it wasn't until Clyde's parole from Eastham Prison that Bonnie started riding along with Clyde and his associates on their crime spree. However, when was the first time that Bonnie, by name, was identified in the newspapers for being with Clyde? We know that Bonnie became quite famous after the shootout at Joplin. Lawmen found many rolls of undeveloped film in the vacated hideout. After the film was developed, many of the photographs were printed in hundreds of newspapers across the country. Due to the publicity from these photographs, Bonnie and Clyde became quite famous. But that was in April 1933, well into their crime binge. After scouring hundreds of newspapers, I believe that I may have found the first time that Bonnie was actually named as being with Clyde on his crime spree. Here's the story of the beginning of Bonnie Parker's printed publicity. Joseph Wright Johns was born in LaSalle County, Texas on June 6, 1885. By the time he was in his 20s, he had moved to Carlsbad, Eddy County, New Mexico. In 1921, he was elected the county tax collector, and in 1927, he was elected sheriff. The next election, he lost as sheriff but remained working as a deputy. Johns was on patrol in Carlsbad on the Sunday morning of August 14, 1932. He noticed a brand new 1932 Ford being driven by a very young-looking man. He became suspicious of this brand new car being driven by the young man. That was out of the ordinary for the times and area. So Johns followed the car to a small farm just outside of Carlsbad. He waited until the man went inside of the farmhouse. Then he proceeded to get a closer look at the car. Another version of the story, the deputy stated that he was told by an anonymous woman that two young men and a young girl was driving a stolen Ford V8 and was at a farm just outside of town. Either way, Deputy Johns went to the farm, parked his police car at about 9 a.m. He walked up to the new Ford and began writing down the license plate number and the engine number. While he was looking at the engine number, a man walked up behind him and stuck the barrel of a shotgun to his back. The gunman told the deputy to get into the Ford, and soon another young man and a young female came out of the farmhouse and got into the Ford. The lady who lived at the farm, Nellie J. Parker Stamps, came out of the farmhouse and approached the car. She pleaded with the gunman not to hurt the deputy. As she pleaded for the safety of Johns, she fell to her knees and asked God to protect the deputy. Soon the new Ford V8 was traveling the back roads out of town to miss any roadblocks that would be set. Miss Stamps called the sheriff's department and told them what had just happened. Soon police arrived at the farm looking for clues. The lawmen interviewed Miss Stamps. She told them that this past week her niece and two young men came to her farm to stay for a while. She stated that her niece was Bonnie Elizabeth Parker, who she had not seen in years. Miss Stamps said that the two men were introduced to her as Jim White and Jack Smith. State police soon arrived at the farm, showing Mrs. Stamps photographs of known criminals. She identified Jim White as Clyde Barrow and Jack Smith as Raymond Hamilton. Clyde and Raymond Hamilton were on the run from the murder of Deputy Sheriff Eugene Moore and the wounding of Sheriff C.G. Maxwell in Stringtown, Oklahoma on August 5, 1932. After the shootout with the lawmen there, they drove to Dallas to pick up Bonnie. She suggested to the pair that they could visit her aunt in Carlsbad, New Mexico, until things calmed down from the deputy's murder. About a week after the murder, the trio arrived at the farm of Bonnie's aunt and uncle, Darris Melvin Stamps. After Miss Stamps told the officers of Bonnie's name and then identified Beryl and Hamilton, immediately their names were in print in numerous newspapers. Lawmen in New Mexico and West Texas was notified of the kidnapping of the deputy. Military planes from Albuquerque were flown over the area searching for the Ford V8. Of course, Clyde was driving the stolen Ford and wasted no time getting out of New Mexico. Deputy Johns was released on Monday morning about 5:30 a.m., just 15 miles west of San Antonio. He walked to the nearest house where he could telephone the police. Johns returned to Carlsbad about 3 a.m. the following morning. Deputy Johns had plenty to tell the investigators once he was back home. He stated that Clyde drove 70 to 80 miles per hour the whole way to San Antonio. They traveled the back roads and often dirt or muddy roads. The deputy stated that he had never seen anyone drive like Clyde before. He said that Clyde threatened him a few times, but mostly treated him okay. Johns said that once they left the Stamps farm, they thought about returning and killing Bonnie's aunt for calling the police. Bonnie and Clyde decided not to go back because they knew lawmen would be searching all over the area for the deputy. It's interesting to note that just before they let Deputy Johns free, Bonnie told him that they had to keep running because if not, they would get the electric chair if caught. This was an amazing insight into Bonnie's thoughts. This was in August 1932. Bonnie and Clyde knew they had to keep running. They believed there was already no way out for them. They would be on the run for another 2 years before the deadly ambush near Gibson, Louisiana. By what Bonnie told Deputy Johns leaves little question that even in 1932, Bonnie was prepared to die with Clyde. She absolutely had no hope or desire to return to a normal life. Bonnie had a discussion with Johns about living the gangster life. She told Johns that he only experienced being on the run for 24 hours. Bonnie then said, "We live it every day and every night." There was already a sense of weariness in her thoughts at this early phase of their criminal career. Due to this incident in New Mexico and through the identification of Bonnie's own aunt, her name appeared in several newspapers for the first time. Through this occurrence, Bonnie's name would be in print each time as Clyde's companion. Through my research, on April 17, 1932, Bonnie's name first appeared in the Daily Current Argus, a Carlsbad newspaper. Newspapers printed that Clyde was already wanted in Dallas on 2 charges: robbery with a firearm, murder and robbery in Hillsboro, Texas, and murder and assault in Atoka, Oklahoma, and now the kidnapping of Deputy Johns. Deputy Sheriff Johns died in Carlsbad on March 5, 1970, at the age of 84. Many years after his kidnapping, Deputy Johns stated that the anonymous woman that he received the tip from about the stolen car was Nellie, who he knew and trusted. For many years, he tried to protect her from any revenge. Bonnie's Aunt Nellie died in El Paso Hospital on October 5, 1944, at the age of 63. Nellie never talked about the incident at her farm or about Bonnie until after the ambush in 1934. After Bonnie's death, Nellie said that she was terrified that Clyde and Bonnie would come back to kill her. She lived in fear until May 23, 1934. It's ironic that Nellie's face resembled Bonnie's facial features so closely, Yet Nellie lived in fear that Clyde and her own niece, Bonnie, would come back and murder her. I hope that you have enjoyed this true story. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Thank you so much for watching.